Hey guys, this is week 50 Project Life, getting so close to the end of the year here, only a couple more weeks to go. And for this week, I didn't have a kit or anything that I wanted to use, but I decided to do something a little bit different for me, which is go through my scrap bin. This is the bin of scrap paper that I keep. Some of it I cut down to sort of usable sizes, like traveler's notebook pages or 3x4 cards. Most of it is just random scraps in there, like these tiny pieces here that I've cut off 6x6 pages. And it gets just progressively fuller and fuller, and I realized that the only way to change that is to actually use some of the stuff in here. So that's what I'm doing. I've started with my photos, and they're all quite lovely and colorful this week, which I appreciate summer for. Thank you for the light. And so I want to just build on that theme. I'm going to just keep using as many colors as possible, with as many scraps as possible, which isn't a lot, I'll admit, because there's not a huge amount of spaces on a week like this. So I am going to use a couple of places. I'm going to use more than one scrap on each page, each sort of spot. Like this one down here, I found a kind of yellow grid card. Well, it wasn't a card, it's from 6x8 paper from Citrus Twist, I think. And I'm going to add that little scrap of spotty paper down the bottom. I wanted to use a few of my punches and some older stamps and some metal dies. Again, just digging into my stash. I have this tendency to want all the new things, but I have more than enough old things already, and they don't get the use that they really should. So really want to try and change that in 2020, and this is a starting point. I've used that border punch just to add a little bit of decoration to some of these scraps. So I used it on the little bit of paper at the bottom of the 4x6 card down the bottom there. And I'm going to use it a couple of times on this title card. Not actually finishing my title card at the moment, I'm just kind of getting those base layers in. So I am layering up 3 different scraps of paper, and just on top of another scrap which was cut down to 4x6, again just kind of a neutral grid sort of paper. I think it's from Heidi Swap actually. And then just layering all of those colors, and to give it a little bit of texture I added a couple of rows of stitching with my sewing machine, and then just roughed up that kind of notebook looking edge. Now this little pad here is something that I made for myself one day. I sat down and cut down a whole pile of my scrap paper so they were all the same size, and then I just bound it all with, what's it called? Is it called a Zutter machine? Just to keep it all in one place. So this is probably the first time I've really used it, to be honest, but this was what I had in mind, is that if it was all in one place and arranged in rainbow order, then I could just flick through it, find the paper that I want, rip it out of the binding and trim it down to whatever size I need. And I think it worked really nicely. So I've just trimmed those 2 pieces down to 3x4, and the little off scrappy pieces will just go in the bin. But it means that I can use whatever size that I want. It doesn't necessarily have to be a 3x4 either. Now these are other pieces of card that were in the scrap bin that I have already cut down to 3x4. I figured it was easier to have these pieces already cut down to a usable size, and that way I might have more chance of actually using them. In that pile were some white card, which is what I've die cut these 2 pieces out of. I love the hello on the sunrise photo. The tag wasn't quite as successful. It just seemed like really a stark white. That photo there of all the polka dots is just some, it was the punching leftovers from when I made my one little word dividers, and I just loved the rainbow, and it seemed so perfect sitting there on my desk. But of course the photo doesn't come out white, so having the white card on top of it looks a little bit off. I decided to just leave that for now and carry on with the rest of the page and decide what to do once I'm a little bit further along. I went to stick this hello die cut down onto my sunrise photo, and I just wanted to add a little bit of something behind it. So I grabbed a blue glitter washi tape and stuck that behind it. It just backs the hello, but gives the page a little bit of something extra. There's not a whole lot of embellishment going to go on this page, so just adding those little bits of glitter just makes it feel a little bit more like me. And instead of having it in one spot, I'm going to add it all around here, so I'm kind of using it like a bit of a recipe, I guess, adding a bit of the glitter washi behind a die cut. These two banners I'm stitching onto my photo again to sort of make everything a bit more cohesive, adding a bit of stitching to add the texture, and the same thing with the glitter, just makes it feel a little bit less flat. So here I decided to go back through that scrap pad and I cut the same tag shape but from a sort of slightly grayer grid pattern, and I like it better. It just stands out a little bit less on top of that photo. It doesn't become such a focal point. I'm going to glue my two little photos down onto the 3x4s. I'm just adding them at the top because I want to be able to stamp something underneath them. I did go through my really, again, very extensive stamp collection and pull out a few of my favorites. I think these are mostly from Kelly Stamps, and I'm just going to stamp them in some black ink. I've got those really black silhouetted trees at the top of the top right hand photo, and it just need a little bit of black elsewhere on the layout to tie that all together. So I stamped in black on top of that journaling card, which was why I hadn't stuck down this little scrap here. This was where I was going to put my journaling this week. And then I just ran that through my typewriter. I had made a couple of little pencil marks to show where my photo was going to go, and then I can erase them once I finished. Now my Instax photos, I do glue down with tape runner, but I always add a staple or some washi tape or something to the top of them because they don't tend to retain the stick of the tape very well. So added a little staple and also a bit more of that glitter washi, and that one's all done, and I've only got a little bit more to go, and it's going to go really quick because I'm just doing a lot of stamping. So I stamped on it. It just fits. Stamp Treat Yourself, that's a really old one from Kelly Stamps, onto the banner, and I'm going to carry on and just do a bit more stamping here. I'm going to add just some stamps just straight onto the 3x4 cards. The page is kind of colourful enough and busy enough that it doesn't need too much, plus I've also done all of my journaling on that one journal card, so I'm not leaving any room for journaling or anything, just stamping it down. Now this is in a creative bubble and a feed your craft stamp set, the Good Vibes stamp is from, and I put that there and I want to add something to it. It says Good Vibes, which doesn't necessarily translate to what the photo is about. This was just going back to the vet to get the sort of all clear for Lil. So I put Good Vibes and then I added Good Dog with these little very old Studio Calico alphas. Again, I went through my alpha stash and pulled out a whole bunch of different littler sets was what I was after, some little alphas. And I love these yellow ones. I think they might have come in a planner kit maybe. They're so old I have no idea. They do still stick really well, so I was happy to use them and add that really bright pop of colour. And I'm going to repeat this on this card on top of the banner. I didn't really have a stamp that was appropriate. I mean, in my stash I probably do, but I wasn't going to rummage through. I just wanted to use what I had pulled out. So I used the alphas to spell out my little title on my desk. Same thing for this. I'm sure there are probably multiple crafting / desk stamp sets in my stash. Instead, I'm just going to use these Pink Fresh alphas, and just the sentiment I'm using on here is so on brand. Again, I don't need to write a lot about it. It's not a huge story, and all my journaling's on the other card. I was just lightly sticking them down until I could make sure that I was going to fit those all on. I really did want to add the pink down here rather than any of the other coloured alphas that I had pulled out. So the last thing I've got to do, and the reason that I left it till the end, is to add my title onto my actual title card. I wanted to see what sort of balance of colours that I ended up with after adding all of those alphas and papers, and what I wanted to add to the top here to my title card is some more of the pink. It's kind of a violety, kind of cool toned pink, as well as a little bit of that peachy colour. So I've used those two different alphas. The pink fresh ones and the peachy ones are from, again, really old Studio Calico alphas. And I decided, instead of stamping a label, which was my original plan, I pulled out a label stamp set from Kelly Stamps. Instead, when I was die cutting these banners, I die cut 3 or 4 just to make sure I had some spares. So I figured I would use that, and that gave me my little triangle on the page, 3 banners on there. Stamped my dates and called this week all done. It's such a drop in the ocean using this sort of stuff from my stash. It would take me a lifetime to use up the rest of these scrap pieces, but I love how colourful it is, and I love that I actually just dug in there and gave it a go. So if, like me, your goal this year is to use up a bit more of your stash, I highly encourage you, dig out your scraps. It was really fun. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to keep watching, there are a couple more videos on screen, or why not check out my Patreon page? There are even more videos over there. Otherwise, I'll see you again really soon. Bye!